So the Commonwealth Party was set up after the Independent Diplomat Commission. What was the reason behind setting up the party and not just keeping the IDC?
What was the reason behind setting up the party? Okay, the Commonwealth Liberation Party had to be set up because the colored people needed a platform so that their voice could be heard, in terms of decision making and in protection of their interests. So we felt there was a need to actually register the Commonwealth Liberation Party, and that was why the party was registered.
Do you think it's going to create a lot of problems for the world governments, or is it the case whereby the world's governments are going to easily accept what the Commonwealth Liberation Party actually preach?
Well, if the world government is going to accept what the Commonwealth Liberation Party actually preach, what the Commonwealth Liberation Party preaches is humanity, dignity of man, upliftment of man, man's empowerment, man's right to social justice, and then man's right to social security. First of all, the way the current democracy is being operated is a sham kind of politics. Okay, so the Commonwealth Liberation Party wants to change the voice of governance, government, and change the voices of rulership for the ordinary man, whose voices are what propels men in podium to have position. So the Commonwealth Liberation Party wants to introduce what we call the act of politics. Democracy and politics is the only school whereby every person wants to come into power without actually having that school of thought trained. For you to come to leadership, you have to be trained in leadership, you have to be taught leadership, you have to be directed on leadership, you have to be championed on leadership, and you have to be moderated and guided on how a proper leadership should be. So the problem of the world is that every man wants to rule a man, but the man you're ruling has a dominant trait themselves. So if you don't understand the mind of the man you're ruling and the mind of the man you're governing, how are you going to be able to govern the man? So you find out that most governments are running a tyrannical dictatorship policies because they want the people to fear them. But the people have put you in power. So how can the people fear you? If the people have to fear you, your government is a sham government. And a unit cannot oust a battalion. The people that run governance and government are ratio 15% to 85%. So how can some little unit of people be controlling a mass battalion and denying them the basic, sustenance? So the Commonwealth Liberation Party, it wants to stand as a teacher to teach government and to teach rulers of government what a proper governance should be.
Okay. So having said that then, if there is the ideology behind teaching the governments the right way to rule, often in today's politics and today's political spectrum, you've got a lot of parties, they debate, they talk about policies, nothing usually gets done. Are you saying then that the Commonwealth Party wouldn't necessarily, especially in the beginning, preach democracy? Because essentially, if we had a democratic society with the party, nothing would actually get done. Does democracy play a role in this in the short run?
Well, I think democracy is misconstrued because democracy is not government of the people, for the people, by the people. Democracy is a government of solidarity union to enforce people's will upon the people. So the right governance is what you call the act of politics. And the act of politics is an initiative of Queen Elizabeth I of 500 years ago, when only her had governed United Kingdom as a monarch. And she, on her own, there was no parliament. She initiated the rules, the laws, and how things should be. So, the truth is that all countries of the world are running a sham government. And this is the first time we want the Commonwealth Liberation Party wants every government to the school of thought of democracy should be able to introduce what you call the act of politics, whereby people can go to school to study leadership. So this is the doctrines of the Commonwealth Liberation Party. So the Commonwealth Liberation Party actually had initiated the manifesto mandate of the 21st century. So we have sat down to compile, the manifesto mandate for the people. And any government or any person who wants to go into politics or come into power should look at the manifesto mandate 21st century and see what it's about and understand that government and governance is for the people. But you see, another thing that makes the government of the world to be running a sham politics is that after the Second World War, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was introduced. And the laws of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is supposed to be a doctrine, controlling the current norms of the law. Yeah. But nobody talks about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. United Nations is still in America. They have their headquarters in Geneva and in America. But how come they have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and nobody is propagating that? Yeah. Because the men in government are not patriotic. Every man is trying to exploit, the system. Yeah. At the contest of exploiting the ordinary man. So the Commonwealth Liberation Party is existing to change all that. Yep. We want to be, we are actually acting like advisory council for political parties who wants to know what it takes to lead the people, manage the people, know the people.
So in that sense then, so it sounds like the Commonwealth Liberation Party, they essentially want to take politics back to its basic form and its most fundamental form.
Yep.
So obviously this has come about due to a need, i.e. governments running tyrannical governments or terrorizing their people essentially. Where do you think this all went wrong? Essentially what you're saying is for the world, because if we're looking at the United Nations Declaration Act or Human Rights Act, which has essentially been bypassed by most governments and it's not really being mentioned in their policies, you see a lot of governments setting up their own organisations, be that the institutions of the police, for example, be the Home Office, be it the visa system, right? They completely eradicate social mobility, government sustenance and social equality. Why has this come about, and why is it so important now?
Well, the truth is that the humans, the current governments are educated illiterates. All governments all over the world, I say to you today, you're all educated illiterates. You need to go back to school and go back to your mythology. You understand? If you know mythology, you know the fact, you know the base, and you know the foundation. Where politics lost its roots was after the death of Queen Elizabeth I. She had no successor, so I think her cousin or her nephew took over the throne. And when Queen Elizabeth was in power, she sent sailors and men of noble to go to African countries to colonize and bring civilization to most continents, especially the African continent, the Asian continent, and Africa, Asia, and some other continents, and some that has still not been discovered. So when these men had traveled, these men are called aristocrats. Yeah. So in their voyage, after 80 years, they had all died, and their children who grew in this colony where they set up their colony. Yeah. So the problem was that in the cost of Great Britain trying to colonize the ordinary man, led them losing their own English itself. Right. So if you look at the English of Shakespeare, you see that it's different from the regular English we speak now. So the English we are speaking now is actually the broken English of the aristocrats. Yeah. So since all the aristocrats had died, is why foolishness has taken over politics. Because fools are now, everybody wants to be in power. Yeah. But power is not meant for illiterates. Yep. If you don't read political science, what do you know about politics? You're not going to be a zoologist and you want to come to power and come and rule a man. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay,
so, like going back to the question of kind of various different agencies within the UK and across the world and so forth, many people will argue that as the population of the world has grown, there is a necessity for control, especially things like immigration, visas and so forth. You look at the European Union in one way that is designed to increase social mobility, in other ways it's not. But then you have places or institutions in this country, in the UK, such as the UK Border Agency. Some people will ask you they're doing a good job and say that they're doing a good job. In your opinion, what are they doing wrong, essentially?
Well, first of all, I fought hard to see that the UK Border Agency lose their contract.
Right.
Because the UK Border Agency are illiterate, you know, in the sense that visa, whoever has initiated the visa scheme, I think that person is mentally unwell. You know, because Article 15, Article 9, every man has a right to travel through the borders of every country.
Is this the United Nations Human Rights Act?
Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So how did visa come about?
Yep.
After the Second World War, the world felt there was a need for unity. So at what point, who actually initiated visa? The animals and the lions and the fishes, from scientific investigation, they are not limited to their terrain. So why would one man like another man introduce a visa scheme limiting a man's free will liberty to be free, when the law of Magna Carta has given everybody their right of independence? Yeah. So visa is a sham scheme. But the UK Border Agency, I fought since 2008, questioning the Office of the Secretary of State. Why will a government contract, the contract like controlling the border territory, why will it be given to the UK Border Agency? The UK Border Agency are private contractor. These people don't know the law. You know, they decide to hack on the European Convention of Human Rights, and all the lawyers are talking about the European Convention of Human Rights. Commonwealth nation did not sign to the European Convention of Human Rights. Commonwealth nation signed to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, UK Border Agency had actually abused the human rights of the people. They've been disbanded now, so they no longer exist. But the problem is that the Secretary of State, you know, had still employed the officers of the UK. So the owner of the contract lost the contract, but she had retained the employees of the UK Border Agency. So you still have the same bad people still in the Home Office affair. So first of all, what is actually happening in this country is a hate crime. Yeah. You know, why would the EU come to this country and the black people don't have a right in this country? Yeah. And why would the colored people not have a right in this country?
So the people who have essentially been denied their visas, in inverted commas, or let's not use the word visas, let's say the right to remain in this country, or if they've been detained, if the Commonwealth Party were to actually come into power, or even in current state of form, do you think a compensation is owed to these people?
Well, first of all, the Commonwealth nations, they pay the Queen royalty. Yeah. So if they pay royalty, the Germans and the EU don't pay royalty to the King of England. So why will the children of anomalies, I call them the children of anomalies, I mean the children of bastards. These are children that in 10th century, 10,000 century, their ancestors were fighting against the United Kingdom as a country. They wanted to take over United Kingdom, dominate made United Kingdom a colony under them. So how can the United Kingdom throw away the Commonwealth nation because of the EU? These are honors. The honors of the Commonwealth nations are being given to the European nation. It's a sham. It's a shame. You know, I believe that everybody should go back and study. You know, their mythology. The Commonwealth nations have suffered enough. They are in prison for nothing. They are being denied the right to come to this country. They are being denied the right to live. They are being denied the right to make a family. They are being denied the right to be humans. If a British man was to go to Nigeria or was to go to Africa, how did the British make Nigeria a colony? Who gave them visa to come there? They came to this country and formed their colonies. So now these same countries you colonized, this same country gave you greatness 500 years ago. How dare you abuse them? The problem is that human has lost their reasoning ability to understand, you know, the facts from friction. You know, the Commonwealth nations, these are people who have come abroad as willingly slaves. They have a right to be here if they want to be here. But what the policies that the government are initiating is a sham policy. They initiate this policy to threaten the people, but it's the other way around. Nobody wants to live in this country. All Commonwealth citizens don't want to live in this country. They want to be sure they can come and they can go.
Yeah.
And you have to open the border because there's a bilateral trade agreement.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, and this is kind of the age-old lessons that we've learned from history, that the longer that you tell a lie to your people, the over a period of time it starts to become their reality. It starts to become embedded within their ideology, and it's clearly that's the case here, and that's essentially what the party is fighting against. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I say a lot of work, probably endless amounts of work that needs to be done in order for the party to be in the ranks of the immediate media, shall we say, and the right places. What, however, can people in the Commonwealth countries right now, what can they do to better their situation?
What can they do to better their situation?
Yes, I mean, I understand we, the IDC, for example, offer the ID card and the citizenship, the Commonwealth Identity Certificate. How important is it to be recognised by these items? And how important is it to really take a stand against what's going on?
No, what it is that I have no reason to be annoyed with David Cameron.
Okay.
He doesn't know what he's doing. You know, when a man, wants to, what did David Cameron study? Did he study political science? I think we really need to question his background. What did he learn? You know, does he know about human science? If he doesn't know about human science, then who is he governing? Okay? You don't create laws and you start threatening people. You know, the truth is that the Commonwealth citizens have been marginalized. Enough is enough. This is time they need to take what belongs to them.
Yeah.
They have the right to be in this country. They have the right to stay. They have the right to renew their visa. They don't even want to stay. So there has to be legal compromise.
Yeah.
If the EU can come and go, the Commonwealth nation also has a right in this country. It's not because the Commonwealth presidents and leaders are fools, they have no brains. Because if they have brains, they should be fighting for their citizens. Angela Merkel is everywhere, coming to the Europe summit, meeting with them, holding meetings, because she's fighting for the rights of the EU people. So when will the Commonwealth government start fighting and meeting to negotiate the will of their people? So the first thing is charity begins at home.
Yep.
The Commonwealth government should start paying their citizens social security.
Yep.
So if they start paying social security to their people, none of their people are going to come abroad. Because the people are able to feed themselves. The only reason why these people are coming is because they want to be able to make a living for themselves.
Yeah.
And the countries where they've come from, there's no job. So if coming to a foreign land will give them the hope and the dream what they want to come, you know? And then why stop them? Why put the border? Why block them from entry? I mean, it's just, I don't know what to say.
Okay.
You know, but I think the people have a problem with themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I may have already asked you this already in a roundabout way, but the Declaration of Human Rights is obviously being ignored by governments across the world. The reason why it's being ignored, that's obviously down to education and people obviously not being from the right background, not having the right knowledge to rule. But does it come down to an underlying reason of power, wanting to stay in control, and money? Do you think that's what it comes down to?
Well, it's been ignored because the government do not know their mythology. It's been ignored because the governments are illiterate.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about the mythology of it and exactly what you feel that should be?
You know, if you know the foundation of an existing law,
yeah,
then you know that if you have to ratify a law, a law does not take out. A law adds or retain. For example, if in 2005, income support is £150. In 2015, income support cannot be £70.
Yeah.
It becomes a sham law.
Yeah.
So since the first government who was in 2005 had retained income support at £150, what the new government will come and do is to leave it at that slide or add. But if the other government has to take out and reduce the money, then that law becomes a sham law. So a law only adds integrity to what has been made.
Yeah.
If a law has to deduct from what has been made, then it becomes a sham law. And that's what it is.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the problem.
Go back to the identity card
Yeah.
that the IDC offer.
Yeah.
Would you say that it is absolutely at this stage in time vital for every member of the IDC to have an identity card?
Well, IDC is a government in the government. Yeah, the identity card is called the British Commonwealth National Card.
Yep.
The identity is very, very relevant. The Angela Merkel policies are a threat to the Commonwealth nation. Because the only reason why the Commonwealth nations are suffering is that the Angela Merkel's law is to see that the EUs are pride and protected. Right. And the consequence of that is that the Commonwealth nations and citizens are being denied their right to social justice, because the right they deserve has been given to the EU people.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I think what we've got a very good understanding as to what the party wants to do and what the party stands for and why the situation has arisen. I think you've gone into a lot of detail on that. Let's take it for 1 minute right now that the Commonwealth Party has come into power, and they are making a change and they're doing good.
Yeah.
How does the party scale itself? Because it sounds like to me that a lot of this knowledge that you're talking about now comes directly from you. Is it the case whereby education will be the heart of the party to teach other people to lead in different areas? Because obviously you can't do everything on your own.
Yeah.
So what's the play? What's the situation? What's the thought process behind making this party into a worldwide phenomenon?
Well, first of all, on the party, we have a lot of doctrines. So the party has been formed. This is the only party that does not need a rich person to come and be a member of the party. If you want to join the party, the process is different. In other parties, you wait for the candidates, party members to vote you in and nominate who their candidate should be. But this party doesn't take that approach. What this party does is that you go and read the doctrines, you come and sit for an exam. So once you can pass the exam, we give you a ticket to go contest for whatever position you want to contest within the portfolio of government. And that's what it is. So the act of politics would mean that everybody needs to go back to school. To rule me, you must understand what goes on in the mind. To understand a man is not the actions of the man, is what propels a man's action. A man is being judged by his action. A man commits a crime. And let me give an example. A man kills his wife, and you say 25 years imprisonment. Now, the man who kills his wife, who goes to prison for 25 years, what of the army, a soldier who had killed 100 humans? Those humans are regarded as enemy. Now, a soldier who kills 100 humans, a human being, and a man who kills his wife, they are the same thing. It's the same offense. But because one is killing in the name of the state, and one has killed at his own reason, doesn't mean that that man who kills one woman, if the soldier who had killed 100 enemies in the war could go free, then equally the man who has killed his wife should also go free.
So you're talking about prisoners' amnesty here?
Well, there's going to be prisoners' amnesty, because first of all, when the government do not take care of their people, then their people have a right to do anything to survive. And if they commit crimes, they are committing crimes because the system has not sustained them. Why do you have to imprison them? You know, I want to introduce whereby the judges have to go through what you call there's one you call the youth service, where judges have to go through prison housemanship.
Okay, so they have to go to prison themselves.
So if you want to be a judge, so we're going to introduce a lot of things. If you want to be a judge, you don't just sit down and want to be a judge and you sentence one man to prison for 30 years. So if you want to be a judge, we're going to introduce what we call prison housemanship for 2 years. So whereby the judges are for 6 months, whereby the judges, after they finish their training as a judge, they are locked up in prison for 6 months.
So essentially it's a judicial system based on empathy.
Yeah, so they need to feel the pain. So when you're sending a man to prison, you understand what it takes to be there for 1 day. You don't just send a man to prison for that. Even the American system. How do you send a man to prison for 75 years? Well, that means you want the man to die 2 times and come back again.
I mean, this ties in very closely to one of your other articles regarding mental health. And the Mental Health Act. Do you want to give us a little bit more information about that?
Well, the Mental Health Act is a sham law.
Right.
Is a scam. You see, the Mental Health Act was introduced by politicians.
Yeah.
Because when fellow politicians are in rivalry, talking nonsense against each other, because the other man cannot send the other man to prison. So they had to introduce a law to say that man is talking rubbish, he's mad. So how do we control him not to deny us the privileges of coming into power? So they put a man in the mental hospital and say he's mad.
Yeah.
But madness, the meaning of madness is actually nakedness and eating from the dustbin. An able man cannot be put in a mental hospital because he decides to fight a policeman. That makes him mad. That's not true.
Yeah.
So we want to abolish the Mental Health Act. It has to be abolished.
So, I mean, everything that you're preaching here and everything that the party preaches is living almost, it's a utopian world. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all looking for a utopian world. And I think the party realizes that, you know, there are always going to be situations which you cannot solve entirely, but you can get them to a point where they are at least acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way politics should be.
Yeah.
Often, if not ever, it never is. One of the questions which will certainly be asked will be around economics, economic funding and economic policy. So, with these great ideas, I know you have your thoughts on how things will be funded and how kind of money works in the world currently. Where would the money come from, and how essentially would Social Security, for example, be paid by major governments to their citizens?
Well, every country has a printing machine. Money is a piece of paper, so print the money.
Simple as that.
Everybody are not educated. Some are more intelligent than others.
Yeah.
So before it used to be trade by barter. You bring the rice, I bring the cocoyam. You know, you bring the rice, I bring the rubber. You know, that we exchange. But because of sustenance of population dependency, money has been created as a scheme.
Yeah.
A man who is born into a country is a citizen of that country. Not all men are strong. Not all men, there has to be praise and there has to be, it's just that God is unfair to creation, that you have prey and predators. But you see, the government should create the money is a piece of paper.
Yeah.
You print it from the printing machine and you give to the people to spend. If they cannot create the society, then the society should look after them. That is why the Commonwealth Liberation Party is about social ability, social economics, social race, and social value.
Yeah.
So it's a system whereby we want to run a system whereby the people are dependent on the government. The government should look after the people because the resources of the land belongs to the people. You know?
Where prison fails for society is that it fails completely to rehabilitate its prisoners. The people who go into prison and come out of prison generally go on to re-offend.
Okay.
The government which you are looking to set up almost comes across as a government of healing, a government of rehabilitation, and a government of education.
Yeah.
How does that relate, or where do the people who have committed atrocities from a government point of view fit into that? So let's take, if me and you had been sitting here, let's say during the 1940s, and we were looking at people like Adolf Hitler or Joseph Stalin, who committed murder on a mass scale, genocide, and even governments today do the same. These world leaders, where would they fit into your regime? My question relates to, is it a case where you would look to rehabilitate them with education? Or is it a case where you would look to punish these people?
Well, currently, the world leaders are coward babies. They don't know anything. You know, currently, trust me, they know nothing. A leader who cannot look after their citizen has failed.
Yeah.
You cannot care for your citizen, you cannot build them social housing, you cannot pay them social security, you are a sham government, you don't need to be in the power, the people should ask you. You know, if people have to die for one person, that person has to be ousted from power. So what it is that I think it's back to school. Everybody really needs to go back to school.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, everybody
I think
needs to go back to school.
It's preaching a government of fundamentals. It shouldn't be difficult.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be difficult at all. But I think everything has become lost in the light of money,
Yeah.
power, and as a result, therefore, tyranny.
Fools are ruling fools. Fools are governing fools. For the first time, we want to give people platforms, we want to give people podium.
Yeah.
People have been talking. Nobody is listening. Nobody is listening because nobody has a platform to talk. You know, those who are talking are ordinary people. Then now that there's the Commonwealth Liberation Party, people should come and take platform and talk.
I think the question to wrap this up on is one which you've probably heard a number of times, is does this ever end?
My creativity and creation.
That and salvation for the world.
Well, salvation for the world, yes, it will be achieved. It's achievable.
Yeah.
15 years from now, it's achievable.
You definitely, you genuinely think
before I die.
Yeah.
Yeah, before I die.
Okay.
It's achievable.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.